All right. So this is for my forensics people. I haven't talked to you guys yet. I hope this is kind of how I'm doing things. First, I hope everyone's healthy, safe, making good decisions, good hygiene, social distancing. I think some people are out there mixing, mingling, and then it's not necessarily you or even me or people your age or even my age. I'm not that old yet. It's not, um, you know, if you're healthy and you don't have underlying issues, getting this virus, should be okay. But one, you don't want to get it, and two, you could give it to someone else who could give it to someone else who could give it to someone who is vulnerable, right? Older person or someone who has underlying health issues. So just keep that in mind with this social distancing stuff, and you know, I've heard a couple times now that if one person isn't safe, then no one's safe, right? So we all have to really keep that in mind. So, anyways, hope you guys are doing well. I miss school, miss class. I don't know how you feel about that, but this is what I've been doing for my other classes. I got a little contraption here, and I got a finished room in my basement here. I got a couple boxes with an iPad recording what I'm doing here. Then I put it on my YouTube channel. I'll put this on our Google Classroom too. Surprise, surprise! Not a ton of kids are watching these things, but this is I think the best thing that I can do, and I think it's good and useful and it helps, and it's kind of like teaching when I'm at school. So this is how I'm going to do it. So, anyways, I'm going to go over that bookwork with you here quick. I have the answer key here, obviously, but let me just go through each one quickly. Don't forget you got that activity due tomorrow. Activity 18.2. Okay. All right. So here we go. When a firearm is discharged, the projectile is propelled forward and the cartridge casing is forced backward towards the breech. That is true. And, I have a Surface Pro here, which is kind of cool. So I can do this as well. So if you look at this, some breech loading firearms. This is kind of, guns are different, but in general, here's the concept. You put the ammunition in, the bullet there, and you shoot it, and the bullet goes that way, and the breech block, like it said here, the cartridge and the cartridge casing force backward towards the breech. So the cartridge goes that way, the bullet goes this way, and obviously the bullet comes out the gun, and the muzzle or the I'm drawing a blank right now. The barrel, jeez. So, anyways, yeah, bullet goes this way. Everything else is gonna go that way because of physics. That's the force, right? Okay. Let's see here. Higher velocity bullet is more likely to remain inside the body. That is false. Higher velocity will go more likely to go right through you. Test firing is used to compare rifling with lands and grooves. That is true. And lands and grooves here. Let me just close these out. I know I got a million things open here. No. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I just had it open. Lands and grooves. This one. Here we go. Did I pass it? I passed it. There it is. Right? So there you go. The lands and the grooves, and that's when it comes out of the barrel, which way is it spinning, clockwise, counterclockwise, right, left, and the lands and grooves are the grooves, and the lands are the ridges or the bumps in between the grooves. So that's lands and grooves. All firearms are rifled. That is not true. Obviously, only rifles are rifled. Tattooing first embedded in the skin, false. 12 gauge is larger than 20 gauge. That is true. There we go. 20 gauge, 12 gauge is bigger. And this is center firing. This gives us the gauge and the maker, right? Winchester, Challenger, all right. So typically it'll give you the caliber, right? So if it's a bullet, it'll give you the caliber, the maker, and then if it fires on the center or the rim, And your activity talks a little bit about that. If I can zoom in here. Oh, those are all center. Here, give me a second. Center. I thought there was one. Yeah, here we go. So we got rim fire versus center fire, right? So that's a 22. And then, again, there's a caliber, 40 caliber. Smith & Wesson, Federal. Okay, anyways, here we go. So NIBIN is a database that contains names. No, it basically, and it tells you right here, it keeps track of, for example, it says rifling patterns on cartridge, markings on the cartridge, convert to three-dimensional images, enter to the breech block markings, ejector mark, firing pin impression, make up the fingerprint, are compared to thousands already in the system. So the evidence is put into this database, and then they can look it up to see if it was already used, let's say, in another crime. So no, it doesn't have people. It's the firearms themselves or the evidence from the firearms. All right. Let's see. I don't need this. Which following is true? 8 is D. Gunshot residue can be washed off, and it may be found in the victim and shooter. Right, because you're both involved or around that gunshot. Trajectory is best described as flight path. B. What factor has the greatest effect on the distance of projectile? The amount of explosion, right? The force, the amount of gunpowder in the cartridge, because that will dictate the amount of force and how far it'll go. Caliber is the diameter. That's why we measured those in class, just to get an idea. The bigger the diameter, smaller the diameter. So caliber is diameter. 12. Sequence of events when it's discharged here. So I'll just show you this here. Triggers pulled. Firing pin strikes back of the cartridge casing. So it's either center or rim fire. Primer powder makes a small explosion. Primer powder explosion ignites the gunpowder. An explosion of hot gases expands, creates force. Bullets propelled forward. Casing is forced back the other way against the breech. The ejector ejects the spent casing. And I pulled these up here. Where's the one with the bullet here? Right, so if you look at this one. Right, so there you go. So you pull the trigger, it hits the firing pin, and that ignites the primer, which ignites the gunpowder. It blows up, essentially forces the bullet out, and everything else goes the other way. All right, 13. Describe firearm evidence to support the claim gunshot were close range gunshot wounds. Gunshot residue and burns found around the entry wounds were consistent with gun being fired at close range. Star-shaped skin tears were consistent with the gun being fired in contact with the skin. So that's obviously close range. Evidence supports the claim that the manner could not be suicide. The first one is the first one I thought of. Damage done by the first bullet would have incapacitated the victim. Wouldn't have been able to use the second one. Recoil from a 9mm would prevent a second shot from striking her. Firearm did not misfire during many tests, so someone had to fire the second bullet. 15. Compare and contrast evidence recovered from a crime involving handgun with evidence from a shotgun. So if a shotgun, I don't know if you guys can see that. No, you can't see that down here. So I'll just read it to you. The shotgun is used. You may or may not find spent casings because the casing is not ejected after firing. All right, so in a shotgun, that casing, so here, these things stay in the shotgun. This may also be true for revolvers used, because revolvers, they also don't send out the casing. The projectile from a shotgun would be either a round shot of a uniform definite size, called a slug, bullet-shaped slug, or and the bullet from a handgun would be caliber specific and could be identified. Gunshot residue may be found on the suspect's hands if it were found and tested within a short period of time after the crime. The wound pattern on the victim might show the spray pattern of a shotgun. So that's like the bird shot, where it just kind of disperses like little tiny steel pellets, or well-defined wounds from a handgun. So a handgun isn't going to have that dispersed. So if it's a dispersed pattern, then obviously you know it's a shotgun. So anyways, there you go. That's 15. All right. I'm going to stop. Try to keep these videos short. Some of my other classes I go on, but I'm trying to do the best I can here. So I'll keep giving you guys stuff to do. You will need your book. I will use Google Classroom. I will send things through Google Classroom. Some things will be able to be done online. like in Google Docs, and I'll make a copy for you guys. But some things will be in the book as well. So I hope you guys are doing all right. All right, I'll talk to you later.